Let's take this conversation a little further. We are joined by the Executive Director of the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, Kolawole Oluwadare. Thank you very much for giving us your time on Nigeria Tonight. 400 billion naira saved due to the removal of fuel subsidy in just 30 days. This, we know, is based off the calculation made by the CEO of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited. That was in February. My question is basically, is your group asking for accountability based on the projection?
Of course, SERAP's advocacy has consistently been about transparency and accountability. And much more importantly, at this time, rising inflation, rising cost of living, and the removal of subsidy. It is very important that Nigerians ask this question. That is the question SERAP is asking at this moment. What are the plans of government to spend these funds that have been saved? And this is within the context to understand that these savings do not necessarily mean that those funds are stashed away in physical terms. But we can all agree that since the removal of subsidy, there are months, there's sums that should have been paid as cost of subsidy, of course, otherwise would have been spent. I can call that the opportunity cost of subsidy. And so how does the government plan to spend this? This is coming from a government, and I'm talking of the APC government, even by the present administration, that made a good case for removal of subsidy by saying that a lot of money will be saved. It's also against the backdrop of the Buhari administration, and this is clearly a public knowledge. And that more than 3 trillion, approximately 3.36 trillion saved for subsidy for the first half of the year, which naturally means from January to June. And this is just the end of June, the beginning of July. And so it means that the funds that have been paid as cost of subsidy, of course, it hasn't been spent. It is very natural that Nigerians are interested in knowing how those funds will be spent. And I did say those funds naturally should be spent to ensure that the hardship caused by the rising cost of living, necessarily by the removal of subsidy, is not felt by most Nigerians. And this is a question that I think any good government should be willing to answer.
Any government will be willing to answer. I like the last part of your comment. I'll come back to that later. You are asking the president to publish the savings, and then you're also asking to provide detail of plans on how subsequent savings will be used. So for a government that announced the removal without clearly stating 1 month in what palliatives they have planned, do you honestly believe they will tell you anything now? That goes back to your reference on a government who knows what they're doing. And this is just, or is this just an exercise for you?
Of course, it is not about what the government will do. It is what about government should. And the Constitution is very clear as the role of government. And we are in a democracy. And the president swore an oath by the Constitution to use his powers on behalf of Nigerian people. And this is very clear. And I see no reason why government will not be transparent and accountable. Yes, 1 month into the removal of subsidy, there are no clear plans or any kind of statement from government as to the intervention mechanisms, or call it palliative, to cushion the effect of the rising cost of living. But that does not remove the responsibility of government to explain in clear terms how the savings, that the money that would have been spent as subsidy payments should be used in the interest of the Nigerians, which is why we believe this is very important for Nigerians to join this advocacy for transparency and accountability. The opacity that we've experienced in governance is just too much, and it cannot continue. And that opacity itself has enabled corruption to flourish unchecked, which is why it's very important that people join this advocacy to government to explain details of how this funds will be spent. It is not enough to make vague promises, to make grandiose statements and tell Nigerians to fasten their belts. The government must show responsibility, obey the laws by giving clear details of how these savings will be spent and even future savings. And it's also the concept of, that is ingrained in the concept of good governance, transparency and accountability, which this government has spoken to times and time again, both during before the elections and even during the inaugural speech of the president.
Okay, I'll come back to the tenure of the president. If we have time, the president is just 1 month. But there's skepticism. You have been suing the government for a long time on a variety of issues, and you are saying this is also an advocacy. Some people say you've sued the government with minimal success. That's the argument. So my question would be, beyond the legal part that you are taking, how far are you willing to push for this accountability you seek?
We will continue to take legal steps to ensure that government is not only transparent but accountable to the people. And this is not being accountable to Sarah, but being accountable to the people who have elected those in authorities to use power on their behalf. That is the basic essence of the social contract theory, particularly in democracy such as ours. So we use legal advocacy as a tool because that is what we believe we can do as law-abiding citizens. We go to court not because we want to go to court, but because that is the spirit and the letters of the Constitution that empowers Nigerians to subject their grievances to the judiciary, who will become the final arbiter in this instance to determine the rights and obligations of citizens vis-a-vis the right and obligations of government as duty bearers. And so we will continue to pursue this. And this kind of advocacy naturally should not end up in the country. We have a government that is responsible and life to its responsibilities. But here again, if these advocacy overture do not give us the desired results, of course, we might end up in court. It would be another public interest litigation. Sadly so, that we have to go to court to compel government to do what they've shown they will do, to do what the Constitution says they must do, and to do what Nigerians are actually asking the government to do. And so we intend to continue this kind of legal advocacy until government does the right thing.
All right, I do have a follow-up question, but I'm told we're out of time, so I'm just going to have to let you go. Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you very much.